Hey, hello, my friends. How are you? Here we are. It's Chat with Matt. It is the 16th of September 2020. Still, here we are to talk about whatever's going on for you guys, whatever you feel I can help you with. I know there was a question written in before. I think it was about being good enough, and I just need to get there on my computer, which I was doing something else just a moment ago. Bright Light Beings, that's the one I want to be in. Right, there I am live, so that's good. And there's the, no, not feeling good enough. Also, female competitiveness with spiritual clairvoyance community. Female competitiveness, my God. Okay. Oh, there's one more comment. Oh, woohoo. Awesome, Christina. Okay, so Sister Emily from Sweden asked, not feeling good enough. Hey, Sister Jane, how are you? Let me just get my drink going. Just got off a clarity call. And didn't have my regular water bottle with me. It's just the normal Matt's life, not being very structured at the moment. Marie's away, that's not helping, so I'm having to make sure all the tasks get done. Birds and chickens and whatnot. Anyway, okay. Get some of that energy into me and we'll be away. So, not being good enough, not feeling good enough, because we are good enough, that's the point. Jane's been feeling very stressed at work. Hey, Sister Stephanie. There's a lot of stress at the moment in a lot of different places and spaces. So, so this is what I'm going to talk about. I'm going to talk about the difference between, to start with, because this is sort of pertinent in this question as well, Emily writes, not feeling good enough. And, I basically wrote back my favourite topic because, this has been my experience too. My whole life I have not been feeling good enough, despite the fact, hey Sister Sharon, despite the fact that I've been exceeding and excelling in many things that I've put my hand to. So it doesn't seem very sensible to not feel good enough when you actually have a lot of evidence to show that you are more than good enough. You're actually excellent at many things, not everything, of course. And that disconnect doesn't actually make it easier. It means that you're feeling good enough, you're not feeling good enough. Energy that arises is kind of infuriating because it doesn't matter how much you exceed, doesn't matter how hard you try, you don't seem to shift this energy, which then makes you think that there is something very wrong with you. And you mustn't be good enough because it doesn't matter how well you exceed at things, you still don't feel good enough, right? So there's something wrong. So it doesn't help to beat ourselves up for feeling beat up, right? It doesn't help to keep criticizing ourselves for not feeling good enough inside of ourselves. Hey, Sister Ashki. So the important thing to get is what we are feeling is not what we are being, right? To understand the difference between what we are feeling, which is quite often an emotional vibration, energy that's quite often left over from our past in our field, is not the truth of who we be. What we are thinking is also not who we are being. It is vibrations of thought form that are being picked up by like a radio receiver that our brain is, right? So these thoughts are floating through the atmosphere, and some of them are attracted to us, particularly based on the vibration that we are emoting. So our emotional feeling arises from within us, whether that be fear, whether that not be good enough, whether that be some sort of sadness, for example, grief that we're somehow not really receiving life the way we want it to be. And then the thoughts come in attracted by that vibration to somehow, into our mind, reinforce it. But the whole time, it's not who we be. That's not who we're being. Quite often what we're feeling and what we are thinking is more a representation of what we are releasing rather than on what we are choosing, right? What we are choosing to experience as ourselves quite often instigates a release of vibrations that are discordant to our choice, right? So if we choose to be safe, we choose to really feel and be safe in the world. I want to feel that I'm safe in the world. Then quite often what you start feeling is a whole heap of doubt and fear arise. A whole heap of not safety comes up, because as you start choosing to align with the vibration of safety, you push out vibrations that are not harmonious with what you have chosen. So this happens also with the idea of good enough. As we choose to work hard and be good enough, to be acceptable, to be appreciated by others, which is how our mind works, because we think this is all an external interaction as opposed to the internal interaction, which I'm going to talk about in a moment, because this is really where the secret kind of lies. But first I want to get to this point where we understand that what we are feeling is what we are releasing, right? Not what we are being. Because when we start choosing to be safe or good enough in the world, then we will quite often feel the opposition to that. We will feel the resistance, we will feel the discordance that we've been programmed with, or we've come to believe through experiences we've had in the past. Now, understanding that our recent past on this planet has been particularly hard for those of us who align with the light, those of us who are very committed to the light and to helping others and to being in integrity with our core values, which is of the light. Then this world has opposed us. This world has made us wrong. This world has tried to squash us, persecute us, and keep us down, disempower us for the last few thousand years, because we've been, it's a long story, but we've kind of been through a phase. The Earth goes through this patch of the universe, patch of the galaxy every so often, which is dense. And during these dense times, during this dense season, if you like, then beings of darkness have the advantage, and they tend to take over the world and run society the way that they like to, which is through, shadow vibrations, whether it's shadow masculine or shadow feminine, which has happened in other times. This particular last few thousand years has been very shadow masculine, very rule-based and authoritarian. And we're carrying quite a bit of scarring, quite a bit of wounding, quite a bit of pain and trauma from these experiences of being in opposition to the collective power over these last few thousand years. So it's very common that we don't feel good enough about ourselves, because we've been on the losing side for the last few thousand years. We've been captured, tortured, persecuted, reprogrammed, implanted with belief systems and various energetic programs to keep us thinking that we're not good enough, which then prevents us from advocating for an outcome that goes against what the societal rulers, the dark beings, have as their agenda. So with all that in mind, it is very understandable that people like you and me don't feel good enough right now, because we are purging out a lot of this torture and persecution out of our fields. So it's arising as the vibration around us, as we're now coming out of this denser field into a more loving time frame, a new age, a new epoch, a new paradigm on the planet, the age of Aquarius. Then the old has to be released. We're just coming up again in however many hours, about, I'm just trying to work it out. I don't know why, I'm an engineer, I get caught up on the math. In about 32 hours, we're going into a new moon, which is going to be, it's a super new moon, so that just means the moon's a little bit larger, but it's also in Virgo. And there's a lot of astrology around this, and it's a moving into a sequence of super new moons leading to an eclipse in December and all the rest of it. So, but the point is, before any new beginning, which is what a new moon signifies, there is an old ending that has to happen, right? There's a letting go, there's density arising to be released. And so that is what is happening right now. I'm just wondering if I'm seeing my comments. Oh, yes, I am. I think. So please feel free to pipe up and step in and ask anything, and whether it's verification of what I'm saying or whether it's something completely different. I can get to that in a moment. So the point is, it's understandable that we're releasing a lot of this not good enough. And the point is, Emily and everyone else, not to fight against it, not to think that we need to somehow disprove these feelings that are arising, because as soon as we give them that much validity, as soon as we start fighting against or trying to disprove the feeling of not good enough, then we're basically reinforcing it, right? As soon as you look for proof, you're basically reinforcing the doubt. So our job is to trust that we are good enough, and that the experience of not good enough that we are feeling is basically what we are releasing. The only way that we're really going to find that level of acceptance and appreciation that we're looking for, the reflection back that we are good enough from the external world, is when we allow ourselves to find it within us. When we choose to use our time of meditation and introspection and recreation, for that matter, as an opportunity to keep aligning with the vibration of self-acceptance. Because before we can feel good enough about ourselves, we just have to accept exactly where we are right now. As we accept ourselves, we can relax through a process that will lead to more appreciation. We will start feeling good enough through certain periods of the day. We will align with that vibration. And then, of course, what will tend to happen is we get another little uprising of not good enough energies that are being poked so that they come out, right? Emily went on to write a little bit more, because I basically said any specifics around this, because the only first thing I had was not feeling good enough was the only information. So I said any specifics around this is to Emily. She wrote, that was the first thing that popped into my head. Perhaps the male and female energy, how women bow to male energy instead of stepping in and being strong in their own energy. So this goes a little bit more than, this not good enough energy, but we can see how it definitely plays out. The male-female paradigm on this planet has been instigated over the last few thousand years, separate to the not good enough thing. But if you're in a female body and you've got the not good enough thing going on, then it's very easy to allow this male-female paradigm to be an intensifier of the experience. So, this particular epoch of darkness that we've been going through has been running in the shadow masculine energy. So masculine shadow rule of force and violence and authority and unbalanced strength is what has been predominating this planet. Rule-based, threatening, fear-based vibrations is how the planet has been run for several thousand years. Of course, that has played out in how men and women interact with each other on this planet, with men taking a substantial amount of men anyway, taking the advantage of being in a male body and having the energy support their shadow way of doing business, which is to be violent, be strong, aggression, and force. So recognizing that that's been going on, and it's not it's not just stuck in men versus women, because the male energy, there's a certain percentage of the population that their body doesn't fit their energetic type, right? So there's a certain percentage of men who predominate with a more feminine energy, and there's a certain percentage of women who predominate with a more masculine energy. Some of those people, of course, form the sexuality of gay, homosexual, and some not. But they're around. So there's probably maybe 15% of the population in that boat. Maybe it's a little less, I'm not quite sure. Those are just numbers that are popping into my head. The point being that it's not implicit. It's not implicit that everyone in a male body has dominance over everyone in a female body, because it is just not the truth. It's not the case. We see many examples of that not playing out that way on the planet. So why I bring that up is because I think it's important to remember that nothing is absolute, that these various tendencies on the planet, you know, it's valid to be aware that there's a predomination of this happening, but it's also important to remember that it's not a truth that it has to be that way. So as we remember that there are something to every rule, what do we say? Exceptions, that there are exceptions to these generalizations. It helps us to recognize that the generalizations are not set in stone. Because if some people are not playing by those generalizations, then it's possible for any of us not to. Hopefully this is helping. We are going to see, Emily and everyone, we're going to see necessarily women rise in their status and thus their influence and power on this planet quite significantly over the next few years, decades. As this new energy is rushing in, there's much more divinely feminine, which is going to help balance it out and allow the shadow masculine to fall away so that the divine masculine can return and create some balance for a while. Then we'll see that we'll go a little bit out of balance in a good way, in a good out of balance way, as there's more and more divine feminine on the planet. That will rise to a certain peak and then it will start to fall away. We're talking thousands of years here in this cycle running. But the important thing to know right now is as the balancing point, as we're coming towards more balance, women are going to rise up. Not in the way that they've done over the last 100 odd years of women rising up, which has been through the process of women adopting shadow masculine techniques to fight back. The women are going to come to the point where they're not needing to fight fire with fire anymore, and they can be the water that is a much more effective way of dealing with fire. So what I feel is going to unravel, and what I would encourage quote unquote women to contemplate or adopt or feel into, is the idea that as you embrace your divine feminine energy, you are going to naturally become more powerful than the shadow masculine, which is dying away and losing its foundation. So it's not about having to get stronger, more aggressive, more forceful to put men in their place. Women and the feminine energy, not just people in female bodies, but the feminine energy is arising on this planet, and people who choose to adopt what is the unfolding energy are going to find themselves rising in their status and their influence on this planet. So now is the time to let go of the sort of the old feminist fight the men are wrong sort of attitude, and allow yourself to work in a more authentically confident way with your predominating energy, understanding that that is your point of brilliance and your gift to the world. So for a long time, and it's been true, that the only way women could succeed is being more masculine on the planet, but it's not exactly true. It wasn't the only way, but it was the main way. Women had a lot of difficulty succeeding on this planet being very feminine, but that's changing. And we're going to see both men and women who are willing to adopt their femininity, their divine feminine, doing much better on this planet, as opposed to having to play the rules by the old game, or play the game by the old rules of having to be forceful and, you know, structured. That's falling away. It's falling away. So don't lose hope. This not good enough energy that's arising to release, let it release, and allow yourself to find the truth of who you are as an embodiment of the divine feminine, and really shine that out, trusting that you will, more than just succeed, you will really thrive in that vibration over the coming years and decades. Sister Eve wrote in, also female competitiveness with spiritual clairvoyance community peers. Yeah, well, this is, you know, very strong, and I have some very strong, intense memories of time when this planet was in shadow feminine energies, right? And if you think what we've just been through is scary, it's got nothing on with shadow feminine energies, and there ain't no rules and there ain't no structures, but it's very dark and very fearful nonetheless, in a very sort of catty, underhanded way. But that's not really what we're talking about here. But anyway, I just thought it popped up when you said that, or when you wrote that. So, you know, the women competing amongst themselves, the whole competition, this whole sort of shadow competition thing, has been born out of lack mentality. And of course, lack mentality has been predominating on this planet for a reasonably long time. So from that lack of resource as someone in a female body on a planet that's been ruled by a shadow masculine authority, it's been easy, conducive for women fighting amongst themselves for the power that they have in a sort of an underhanded way. Competition is no stranger on this planet, and whether they're masculine competitions of outright power or whether they're feminine competitions of sort of I don't even want to use the word underhanded power, but softer power. Control. It's about control. It's about emotional control as opposed to forceful external control. But that hierarchy or bitchiness or whatever we want to call it, you know, has been around, you know, through this whole period of density on this planet. And I believe it's on the way out. And just as the structures are crumbling in the shadow masculine world, these tendencies are being revealed and released in these other shadow areas. So recognize it for what it is. Awareness is always key, but don't feel that we need to quote unquote fix anything here. We don't need to fix the female competitiveness in the spiritual clairvoyant communities. It will fix itself. Our job is to choose what energy we are associating with. You don't need to go in and try and fix the communities. We have to let the communities in some way self-destruct so that they can rebuild. Does that make sense? So it's not a wrongness. This female competitiveness is not a wrongness. It's not going to stay. It's on the way out, but it's arisen as a natural consequence of the energetic container that has been perpetuated. As the container is changing, as the vibration around us is changing, that tendency for females to get into this sort of bitchy competitiveness will fall away. Our job is to recognize it, hold space for it, not to need to try and go in and fix it, but to make our own choices, not to engage with it. You've never heard that female clairvoyant community? Oh my goodness. Well, it's there, Sister Ashki, it's there. Yeah, a lot of competition around who's right and who's wrong. I've just been talking to your question, Sister Eve. I'm not sure if you were there before, but I can see you've just joined now. I've just missed that question. Oh yeah, here, Eve. Feels like social climbing and power games and trying to understand my best lesson in how to respond to it. The way to respond to it, so you're entirely correct about the social climbing. The social climbing is definitely there. Awesome, Aski. I get it. The social climbing is definitely there. So, and the power games are always. So, and not with everyone, of course, right? And there are different communities, right? Not every community of female clairvoyant sort of is going to be exhibiting this to whatever extent. But your lesson is to acknowledge your own awareness and to respond to it by choosing your own point of view, which might mean not engaging with that community, right? Not needing to sort of fit into that community, because sometimes communities are not supportive of us. And so the best thing to do is to avoid that particular community and allow yourself to find other community. Excuse me. Trust your heart, basically. At the end of the day, Eve, it's always about trusting your heart. Awesome. So trust your heart and just respond to it in a way that feels appropriate. That's all any of us can ever do. Don't get too mental with trying to work out, with trying to intellectualize how to fix this situation. Just honor your awareness and make choice from your heart and trust that that's going to lead you forward into your best outcomes. I know it's easy. You know, we're talking in our community, in the Mantara Transformation Empowerment Support community this month about community, and it's many of us of our ilk really have felt that we don't have much community on this planet, that we don't fit in with society in general, and we've always looked for little pockets of community that are more accepting of us. But unfortunately, many of those little pockets of community have been far less than ideal. So there's been certain aspects of it that have, you know, that fit better with us, but there's quite often some downsides that are quite out of integrity with us and quite untenable. And so it's a hard decision to make, to walk away from what little community we sometimes have, because it's really not serving us to be there. The point is, we are more defined by what we say no to sometimes than what we say yes to. So when we say no to things that are out of integrity to us and we step away from it, we are actually opening the door for the universe to give us more of what we are choosing. And community will arise as you hold your own vibration strong and as you shine it out. Thank you, calendar. As you shine it out more effectively and more authentically to the world. So, march to your own beat, but don't feel that you're on your own. We need to be willing to trust that we are self-sufficient in order for us to attract the community that gives us our best alignment, that is most aligned with us. And I know that that's a difficult balance or harmony point to meet, and it is never stable, right? There's this pendulum that goes on as we sort of dance between wanting the community and the support and then realizing that that community and support isn't really supporting us to the level that we need. And so there's this pulled into and pushed away sort of thing going on as we really find ourself and our own strength of self so that we can attract people into our lives that really serve us. Well, this sounds juicy, Eve. I'm going to read it down here. Go away from there because I can see it's got the see more button, which always trips me up. How can I keep them from reading my energy while in the privacy of my own home? I have had signs from them that they are remotely viewing me in my own home. Why does it matter? Why do you feel that you need your privacy? What are they? Do you feel that they're using that information in ways to harm you? Ultimately, when you are strong in the fact that there's nothing to hide from, they can see you all they want, because the only thing that's going to happen is they're going to get blinded by your light, right? When you choose not to be fearful of them, when you choose to understand that they have no power over you, they can look all they like, right? They can look all they like. But if all they're seeing is the light that you are choosing, then what harm does it do to you that they're looking? And the point is, as you stop worrying about them looking, they will soon lose interest in looking, right? And I know... Awesome, Kelly. I'm glad that's working for you. And hopefully this answer's serving you too, Ashki. Because the point is, the more that we contract in fear around people looking at us, and this goes on about a whole heap of other stuff happening, which is more, in the shadow masculine, authoritarian, surveillance world that's being set up, which I do not, align with or agree with. But the point is, fearing it and fighting it is not going to achieve the aim that we want. When we choose to know inherently that we are sovereign and that no one has any place to interfere with us, not because it's some rule that we need God to enforce the rule that I'm sovereign and no one can interact with me. No other energy needs to play into this. It's our own vibration that we know that we're sovereign, and no one else can, not that they're not allowed to, no one else can interfere with us. Now, I know it's hard when many of you have experienced people interfering with your energy, but the only reason that that's happened is that there's been some sort of belief in your field that it can. As you let go of all of the beliefs that anyone can interfere with your energy, as you let go of all of the remnants of black magic, curses, hexes and all this interference, and claim the power that you are as a being of light, then you can stand strong. And I know this is a tenuous point, and again, a balance that takes time to, I don't think balance is the right word, but it's an outcome that takes time to develop, because as we've had experiences of other people fucking with our energy, then it's hard for us to believe that other people can't do that if we are strong in ourselves. So there's this push-pull, and there's the release of all of this old history, because in times where it has been very dense and dark on the planet, of course it has been easy to keep us into the fear that we can be energetic manipulated, and thus if we're in the fear that we can be energetic manipulated, then it's very easy to energetically manipulate or interfere with us. So it's, the only way that people have the opportunity, or energies have the opportunity, to interfere with you is if you go into the fear that maybe they are, right? Fear is the chink in our armor. When we choose to really hold strong in the light that we are, and know that our light radiating out around us is the best defense against any interference, then all we need to do is maintain our light, because it's joyful for us to do so. No longer are we operating from the fear that we need to keep protecting ourselves against attack. We are now operating in the love of being the brightest version of ourselves, because it feels good to be that bright version of ourselves, and that holds at bay any interference that others may or may not think they want to do to you. Fear is our greatest enemy. Now, it's important that we don't fear fear either, because a lot of people go, oh my God, I'm in fear, when all that's really happened is they've just recognized a fear-based thought in their mind. Now, understanding that a fear-based thought in your mind is not you being in fear, but you releasing fragments of fear from your past. Also, the vibration of anxiety, a feeling, an emotion of anxiety and sometimes dread arising from within you, again, it's not you being fearful, it's you releasing old vibrations of fear-based trauma that's left in your field. So you must be willing to feel and to have thoughts of fear without believing that you are actually in fear. That takes time to develop, where you can this is coming back to where we started about the not good enough. When you can feel things and think things without allowing yourself to think or believe that you are those things, when you trust that you're being something different to what you are feeling and thinking, then you have true freedom to really be what you wish to be, despite what you are releasing, despite what you are feeling, and despite what you are thinking. Does that make sense, my friends? Because it's really important, because a lot of people have a fear-based thought or a fear-based feeling arise in them, and then they contract thinking they've gone into fear. And of course, once you think you've gone into fear, you're now in fear. So I'll read that, Eve, and then we'll finish this up. I was told, who told you for a start? I was told that she could see me looking for an item and how I was feeling, and described specifically, which was very detailed and correct. And yes, I just want to say no in a way which works, but I will maintain my light and love of my brightest version of myself. Yeah, so the point is, Eve, how does it damage you for someone to see you looking for an item and know how you're feeling about doing it, right? Because that doesn't really hurt you. I know we all like to think we have our privacy. The only reason we want our privacy is we think we're not good enough. And we're worried about other people finding out that we're not good enough. That's the only reason we want to hide away and maintain our privacy. Is this idea that others will find out that we're a fraud, or we're not good enough, or we're somehow deficient. When you are truly, truly confident in the being that you be, you don't give a fuck who can see you. Truly, because it doesn't matter to you, because you've got nothing to hide. You've got nothing to hide because you are confident in yourself. So the understanding what is, and I'm not making you wrong, because many of us have this issue. I have this issue as well, where we don't want others to see that we're somehow deficient, and therefore we put on a persona and we want to show up in the world looking like we've got all of our shit together, and it's not working. It's not working today. We're looking for relationships that are real with people, and that's why I help facilitators cut out and be real and not look like, you don't need to have all of your SH1T together to be an honest, valid, helpful facilitator on this planet, right? And so it's the same with why we're worried about someone remote viewing you, is because you're worried that they're going to find out some secret about you that they're then going to use against you. But what if there's no secret about you that can be used against you? What if there is actually nothing wrong with you? What if the only thing they're going to see is your bright, blinding brilliance of who you are, right? Then you don't have to care about them looking at you. So understand what's driving this desire for privacy. How does that sound, my friends? I'm looking at the time, it's 9:39. I know I was a few minutes late getting on, but we've pretty much done our half hour. Hopefully that was helpful. She had suggested that I move out of my home too, and her friend who also did too. Well, she can suggest all she wants, right? You choosing what you do, Eve. You choose what you do, and don't give your power away to anyone who supposedly has these abilities, right? Because the ability to remote view, it's just paper magic, right? How helpful is it, right? Just because she has these abilities doesn't mean she has any real wisdom, right? There are many, many people who have psychic abilities that are reasonably immature souls and don't have great wisdom. And there are many others who have great wisdom who have no psychic abilities. So don't put psychic abilities in some sort of category of high development, because it is not the truth. As you reach out to me via Messenger, and I'll just work out exactly what you're trying to buy and what discount code, and I'll sort you out. They are game players who suggest that I move out of my home. Yeah. You make your own decisions, even. Don't give your power away to anyone who suggests anything based on any psychic ability, because at the end of the day, psychic ability is just like, it's just like playing soccer. Some people are really good at playing soccer as well, but it doesn't mean that they are evolved beings. Psychic ability is no different to playing soccer, really. It doesn't mean that you're more evolved. It just means you have ability to work on a different level than the average person, just like a really good soccer player has an ability to work with a round ball on a field better than most people can do. It doesn't mean that they're somehow born leaders or even important with the wisdom that they share. Much, much love to you all. And it's not to say that someone with psychic ability is necessarily not advanced, and it's not to say that a soccer player is not advanced either, right? They're just tools. It's important that we don't misrepresent the tool as being the being, right? Recognize the being and whatever tools they are using. That's the important thing. It's not to judge the book by its cover, but to actually be bothered reading the book and understanding whether there's wisdom in the book or not, right? With anyone, whether they have all sorts of flashy abilities, it doesn't mean anything. And also, we don't just because they do have flashy abilities doesn't mean that they're not wise either. So just to get that out there. Awesome, my friends. Much, much love to you all. I will be back again next week. Anything else to say? For those of you who are in the Mantara Transformation Empowerment Support Community, we have our Q&A call this weekend, Saturday afternoon in the United States, Saturday evening in the Europe time zones, and it will be Sunday morning for us here in New Zealand, Australia, etc. Much, much love to you. I will speak to you again soon. Bye for now. Bye-bye.